It always feels really weird to me that autumn doesn't actually end until just before Christmas, because at this time of year it just feels like you're in the winter. Like, it looks like it's winter outside, it's cold enough to be winter outside. It feels like winter, and with Christmas you just kind of associate it with that in December. But technically autumn doesn't end until just before Christmas. However, because mentally I feel like we've just kind of entered into the next season, I feel like that's where I'm at. So, I will be talking to you about some of the books that I have enjoyed the most over the autumn period today. I have been finding that 2025 has been a really good reading year for me. I've definitely slowed down in the last 2 years my reading pace and tried to read more intentionally, and I think the result of that is finding more books that I'm enjoying, which is a lovely feeling to come off the back of it, and just spending longer reading those books as well is just adding to my enjoyment. So I'm finding that I'm getting a lot more 4 and 5 stars than I think previously. Maybe, I don't know what it actually factors out at, given that I'm reading less books, but I'm enjoying more. So I'm really having a good time with what I'm reading. I wanted to talk to you about some of the books that I have been enjoying the most in the autumn. The first one is one that I'm actually still I'm not saying the middle of, nearing the end of at the time of filming this video, but I couldn't not include this because I think this is going to go down as probably one of my favourites of the year. This is the first book in the Book of Dust series by Philip Pullman, La Belle Sauvage. This is a prequel series to the His Dark Materials trilogy, which I read that trilogy very quickly. I went to the premiere for the TV show, and I think at that point I'd only read the first book, and I was just so, oh my god, to be invited to the premiere, that I was like, I have to finish the series. So I kind of sped read the last two and regretted it because I felt like I didn't absorb them properly, and it's such a fantastical, brilliant world that to not feel like I was immersed in it properly. Now I'm like, oh, so now I'm enjoying this one at a very slow pace and having a great time with it. This is following Malcolm, who is a young boy that somehow gets swept up quite literally in this huge adventure that is happening. We are also seeing Lyra from the His Dark Materials trilogy as a baby in this. We get several other characters that are returning from that series, and you get a little bit more context to the start of Lyra's life and this huge adventure that she goes on when she is literally just a baby. It's so good and so escapist, and it's got me with that kind of childish sense of wonder at my book that I used to have when I was a lot younger, and sometimes books come about and give me that feeling again, and that is definitely what this is doing. It's so interesting with the plot. There's so many different angles that are happening, and you're following Malcolm as the main storyline, but then you've got a couple of others that are happening as well that you kind of don't really know who to trust. There's a couple of different threats and dangers out there, and you kind of hope that you've got the right idea of who to trust and who Malcolm should trust, but basically Malcolm's just going on this adventure with Lyra and trying to protect her and keep her safe. And you're also getting a little bit more into the context of dust, which is a big subject matter of the His Dark Materials trilogy, so you're getting a little bit more about that and more about the alethiometer. If you are a fan of the His Dark Materials trilogy, you will love this, and if you haven't read it at all, then you can still read and enjoy this. I think it's just not super fresh in my head anymore, but that hasn't affected my enjoyment of this at all. I love this so much. I would not be surprised if this comes out as a 5-star read. I've got about 120 or so pages left, I think. 100 pages. I'm very near the end. I'm excited for the fact that this is a trilogy as well, and I get to continue to enjoy this. Usually, I feel like I never know if I'm a standalone or a series gal. Let me know in the comments which you are. I don't know. I think if the book, some books should just remain one book. Another one that I'm talking about in this stack, I feel like makes sense to just be the one book, and if there ever was another book in the series, if it became a series, I don't know if it would be necessary or not for the story, whereas this, you need to have that for the story because there's so much happening. So I'm so excited to dive into book 2 and then eventually book 3 for this series. The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. This was my first T. Kingfisher. I've spoken about this a little bit recently. Read this for spooky season in October. It was our Patreon book club pick. I really enjoyed this. As an introduction into T. Kingfisher's writing, this was a great one. I don't know why I felt kind of intimidated by T. Kingfisher's writing going in. I really don't know why, but that was unfounded because it's just brilliant writing style. This story follows our main character, whose name I've forgotten, Kara. Kara is going through divorce. She comes to stay with her uncle at his museum of curiosities and oddities and lots of taxidermy stuff and things. And she loves it there and she helps him run it. And in doing so, she discovers this portal to an alternate universe world with these creepy things in it. And she pokes about and explores that with the help of her friend who works at the cafe next door. And it's about all that goes on there. One of the things that I love about this is that the creepy setting of this museum isn't the thing that's creepy about this. It's this kind of possession, strange element that's from this parallel world, alternate world, whatever kind of world it is, not the current world that they're in. That's the thing that's unsettling, and the element of how that plays with dreams and consciousness as well. And I think that's really clever as an approach to the horror in this book, because you kind of think it might be one thing that's the horror element and then it ends up being a completely different thing. And it was a really good time. I really loved the atmosphere. I really loved the relationships in it. I loved how it was also focused on healing in some way or another for multiple different characters as well. Our main character obviously experiencing a divorce and going through that and kind of working out where her priorities lay, and at the same time as all this strange shit happening to her. I really liked the balance of that. It felt very real and genuine for her, alongside something that is totally fantastical and just completely otherworldly, quite literally. So I really loved the balance that came from those, and I'm absolutely going to be reading more T. Kingfisher because this has definitely got me hooked on the writing style. You have probably also seen me talking about this, Good Girls Don't Die by Christina Henry. I can't stop speaking about this in videos because I think this has escalated to one of my favourite horrors. I love a meta horror. I love a horror that plays with the trope of horror, and this does exactly that. We're following 3 women in 3 different simulation scenarios. They're not really sure how they got thrown into them, but they know they are in them, and each of those is a different horror trope. So we have like a isolated town thing where this woman's not living the life she knows she should be living. We've got a Hunger Games-esque fight to the death games, and we have a cabin in the woods slasher type of thing. So it's 3 different women's stories, what they're going through, and then how their stories are all kind of related to each other in some way. It's a kick in the teeth of the patriarchy. It's a power for the women kind of book, and showing how underestimated women are in this situation. And I think that's so brilliant because horror, a big part of a traditional classic horror is the role of the women in those films and how they're seen often as damsels in distress and in need of saving and not able to save themselves. And this book does very interesting things with that trope and how men perceive women in horror situations. And I love that. I thought it was just done so brilliantly. I love Christina Henry's writing style. You can tell just how much Christina Henry loves the horror genre in any of their writing, and this one especially, that just comes across so clearly in the different types of scenarios that these women are put in. Loved reading about these characters, loved seeing how it all came together, completely addictive. Adored it. Taylor Adams' The Last Word was one that I honestly wouldn't have thought would go on this list, but I loved this. This is another horror, again, a spooky season read. This is following somebody who has experienced something horrific. We're not really too sure what the details are of it. She comes to stay at this house she's housing for somebody, and it's in a very isolated setting, and she just intends to keep herself to herself and read a load of books. She reads a thriller horror book on her Kindle and leaves a 1-star review for it because she hated it. And in doing that, basically gets on the hate list of the author and starts to be haunted and harassed off the back of this 1-star review. And then things just, shit hits the fan. Things start to snowball from there. The last 150 pages of this were pure chaos and I loved it. It's so stupid of a concept and I love that, but it also at the same time, it's actually a really interesting conversation of the power of reviews and the value of reviews and who reviews are for, and discussing that reviews are for the readers. And it's such an interesting look at the way this author takes a very, very extreme approach to a negative review, but also the format of the book itself. Like, I love that the back of the book has reviews with no names next to the reviews, and that was one of the things that the main character was calling out on the book that she left a low review for, is that there was just anonymous reviews for it, and it made it look like it wasn't actually being reviewed by real people. And I actually noticed that going into this. I was like, interesting. Is this a spoofy book? Like, is this, I don't know, but the fact that there was no names next to the reviews, I was like, are those genuine? And I don't know if they are genuine and they've just been made anonymous, or they are literally just the marketing product of the book and part of the design, but it's very clever. And I think the book does so much of that, again, meta in its acknowledgement of the horror genre and from the main character as well as the author, in the way that they're writing this in a real, like, conversational way to evoke that conversation about the relationship between the author and the reader. And I thought that was great. The chaos was immensely entertaining and fun and brilliant and all over the place, and I just had a great time with it. An audiobook that I absolutely loved was The Book of Witching by C.J. Cooke. I'm a sucker for anything C.J. Cooke writes. They so perfectly do a balance of past and present timelines, and this one was no different. This is following two different timelines, one of which set in the past where we are seeing somebody accused of witchcraft, and one of which is set in the modern day where somebody's daughter has gone away and something really awful has happened. And there's always, as always with CJ Cooke books, some kind of flicker of linking between these two moments in the past and the present, and I love the way that they do this. It's so clever. You will always find yourself second guessing where the link is going to come into it and how all these characters and their stories knit together. But this one is about the power of a mum and her drive to find out what's happened to her daughter. It's about the injustice faced in the past of this witchcraft trial, and also like the historical side of that as well. Very, very interesting book, very gripping, very compelling, very fast-paced read for me because I just needed to know what was happening. As an audiobook, this one's fantastic. I cannot recommend CJ Cooke enough if you like those kind of books where it has like two different timelines entwined together. I think that they do such a good job of that. I don't think every single one of their book does that, but when it is done, it's done so brilliantly. And I think it's such an interesting way to tell the story because you are constantly anticipating going back to the other narrative in the other time period that you're not currently in, how that's going to resume and link into things, and at the same time is enjoying the time period you are currently reading about. It was very good. It was very entertaining. You've probably seen me talking about this one already in my content because I absolutely loved it. This has my heart. This is Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mitsuki Sujimura. This, I think, is definitely one of my favourites of the year, if not one of my favourites of all time. This was so, so good. We're following 7 lonely children who all, for whatever reason, are not going to school, and they are all given this fantasy portal through a mirror to a castle where they can spend a year in the castle and have that time to look for a key that unlocks a door to a wishing room where one of them will be granted one wish. So we get to see them over the course of this year and their companionship and how that grows and develops. And this is a story about loneliness, but it's also about so many other things, and it's just lovely. But it's a fantasy. It's got this fantastic fantasy element running through it, and there's so many moments that had me like goosebumpy and like, what? When I finished this, I just didn't really know what to do with myself because it was so good. It was so good. I can't recommend this enough. The blurb is a great description of what part of the story is about, but then there's a whole other part that you don't even know is coming. It's just fantastic, and I can't say much more about it than that, other than recommend you to read it because you will not regret it. The direction this takes blew my mind, and I loved it so deeply. So deeply. It's just so good. It's so good. And just, if anything, just for what it does for these characters and their loneliness, I just want happiness for these characters, and I want them to find companionship and just, yeah, I'm glad they were put together in this book. Even though it's all fictional, I don't care. I care very deeply for these characters because they just feel so real, and I just want them to be okay. So yeah, I love this book so much, and just will not stop talking about how much I loved it because everyone needs to read it. It's so good. Actually, this is also our current Patreon book club pick, so if you do want to read it and discuss it, we are reading this for November and December, so you've still got time before the end of the year. Of course, I have to include Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I'm still not sure if it's Catabasis or Catabasis or Catabasis. I don't know. I feel like I say something different every time, so apologies if I am inconsistent with that. But this is, of course, fantastic. R.F. Kuang does such a brilliant job of writing these incredibly intelligent intellectual fantasies. This is following 2 grad students who go to hell to try and retrieve their professor so that they can finish their studies. This is so clever because it references so many versions of hell in the writing that it's almost become its own version to be referenced in the future, which is so clever. And so interesting to read about as well, because you're following these students going about these layers of hell. They're still alive, but they've gone down there and haven't really fully understood the consequences of what happens. The magic system is very interesting. I would love to know more about that, like see more in this world other than just the parts that we get to follow in this story. But we get their developing relationship, which I really enjoyed. It's a rivalry friendship to start with, and I really love how it develops. It feels very real and genuine to me, the way that it goes. And we also get to explore these different levels of hell and the different sins that are within the 7 deadly sins that are associated with them as well. And also kind of the reason for going down to hell and the morals and values of these characters. As always, with an R.F. Kuang, this is written absolutely brilliantly. It's incredibly intelligent. It has got so many layers to it, and it was just a fantastic, fascinating read. It really sweeps you away with it. You really feel like you're there, the atmosphere of it and how hell is physically represented. It's all absolutely brilliant. I mean, obviously I loved it because it's in my favourite books of autumn video. Finally, on my favourite books of autumn is Stephanie Garber's Alchemy of Secrets. I love anything Stephanie Garber writes. It's always so fantastical and nonsensical and just brilliant, and I love the vibes so much, and this book was no different. In fact, the vibes in this one, I mean, the cover perfectly reflects that kind of Art Deco meets modern with this brilliant fantasy angle to it. We're following our main character who takes a folklore class run by somebody called the Professor, and most of the people in this class think the stories are just stories, but she, our main character, believes that there might be more to them. And she kind of goes poking around a little bit and uncovers quite a few things, and then ends up getting swept up in this magical search for this specific item that multiple people are after, and it gets quite dangerous and it gets quite thrilling. We get to meet multiple characters along the way that we have no idea who to trust. Like, the whole time I was reading this, I really, even now, I still don't know who the right people to trust are. This is a series, so we are getting another one. I think, is it just a duology? I think, I'm not sure, but I'm very excited for book 2, because the way that book 1 ended, I need book 2. This is such a fun concept because you never know who to trust, because you're constantly switching your allegiances. The main character throughout you're able to trust, but whoever she's kind of involved with and talking to, it's just like, I don't know anymore. And we get to see so many interesting nods to the bits of folklore throughout as well, and also to film and cinema, which I really love. This was a really fantastic homage to that as well, which again, I adore when any book does that, plays homage to something that I also love in film and cinema. So I absolutely love this. It was brilliant. The vibes are immaculate. This is the final book in my recommendations video for books that I have been loving in autumn. Let me know what some of your favourite books that you read in autumn were. Thank you so much for watching this video. I've made vlogs for a fair few of these as I was reading them, so they will all be on my channel if you do want to check those out. And if you are not already subscribed to see more vlogs, then do consider hitting the little subscribe button. I never do plugs at the end of my videos, but I've also spoken about my Patreon a little bit in this, from the book club books that we read. There is a link down below to that if you are ever interested. I do weekly live shows, book clubs, Discord, lots of different things. There's a discount to my online shop, which I think is also linked down below. I never talk about that either, but that's there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.